Story 1. Several years ago, back when I was just 18, I worked for Domino's. On one fateful night, I found myself out on delivery with only one stop left to go. Eager to finish my shift and get some rest for school the next morning, I headed towards the last house. The location seemed relatively close, just a few miles from town and 6 or 7 miles from the Domino's where I worked. However, the moment I arrived at the property, an eerie atmosphere engulfed me, making it feel like I had entered the heart of the boonies. Pulling into the long and narrow gravel driveway, stretching for what seemed like a quarter mile, an instant shiver ran up my spine. A dysphoric-like feeling weighed heavily on my chest, creating a sense of unease. The driveway was flanked on both sides by dense trees, their branches extending ominously close to the road, casting long shadows that added to the eerie darkness. For a brief moment, I sat in my car at the end of the driveway, trying to gather myself. The situation was undeniably creepy, and fear crept into my bones. The late hour, nearing 10 o'clock, heightened my apprehension, and I couldn't shake the feeling of something lurking within the trees. A hooting owl added to the unsettling atmosphere, intensifying the ominous aura that surrounded me. Despite my unease, I knew I had a job to do. Returning to the store empty-handed because of fear was not an option. It would surely cost me my job. I reassured myself that I was overthinking things, that it was just a regular delivery. All I had to do was drop off the pizza on the porch, as the customer had already paid online, including a tip. Summoning courage, I cautiously navigated my way down the driveway. As I drew closer to the house, I noticed a man sitting on the front porch, his silhouette illuminated by the faint glow of the outside porch light. He took a final drag from his cigarette before approaching me. Exiting the car, I greeted him, eager to complete the transaction swiftly. However, the man stared at me, his gaze lingering for what felt like an eternity, annoyance etched on his face. Caught off guard, I stumbled over my words, trying to explain why I had hesitated at the end of his driveway. Standing before me, he abruptly snatched the pizza from my hands, complaining about its temperature. Bewildered by how he knew about my delay, considering it was impossible for him to see me from the porch, I pondered whether he had heard me or had surveillance cameras. In that moment, I decided to think on my feet. Not wanting to aggravate the customer further, my sole desire was to escape this unsettling encounter. Denying any knowledge of a delay, I could see his distress deepen, exacerbated by my response. His accusing words hinted at his disdain for liars. Suddenly, I noticed movement from inside the house, someone emerging and approaching us. Simultaneously, 2 figures emerged from the back, slowly advancing in our direction. Adrenaline surged through my veins. It was clear that if I didn't act swiftly, something terrible was about to unfold. Fight or flight instincts kicked in, and I wasted no time. I hurriedly handed over the remaining food and drink, including the 2-liter soda he had ordered, and bolted towards my car, desperate to escape this growing menace. But just as I reached for the driver's side door, one of the men seized me, violently slamming my head against the car window. The impact sent me crashing to the ground, disoriented and in pain. The man demanded my wallet and phone, leaving me with no choice but reluctantly. I handed over my wallet and phone, my mind racing with fear and confusion. The assailants warned me to disappear and threatened dire consequences for me and my family if I dared to involve the authorities. Their possession of my ID left me feeling vulnerable. They knew where I lived, and the risk of defying their warnings seemed too great to bear. Stunned and battered, I managed to gather myself and stumble back to my car. Determined to protect my finances, I decided to act swiftly. With only about $70 in my wallet, I knew that the bulk of my money resided in my bank account. Arriving home, I pleaded with my girlfriend to use her phone, desperate to take control of the situation. Dialing the 24/7 hotline, I reported the incident, cancelling all my cards and informing them of the theft. It was a small comfort knowing that the criminals would not have easy access to my funds. However, I realized that I would need a new ID, a necessary inconvenience to ensure my safety. In the aftermath of that harrowing night, I couldn't shake the lingering trauma. The experience served as a stark reminder of the dangers faced by those who work in late-night delivery. To anyone reading this, especially fellow delivery drivers, I implore you to prioritize your safety. Trust your instincts, for they may be the thin line between life and death. Reflecting on that night, I often wondered what drove those individuals to commit such an act. Was it a random encounter, a twist of fate that placed me in their path? Or was it a calculated trap designed to exploit unsuspecting victims like me? The questions lingered, unanswered, shrouded in the darkness that swallowed that secluded house and its enigmatic occupants. Months passed, and I slowly regained my sense of security. The memory of that terrifying incident remained etched in my mind, a scar that served as a constant reminder of the fragility of life. I channeled my experience into spreading awareness among my peers and the wider community. I advocated for increased safety measures for delivery drivers and urged companies to prioritize employee well-being. Over time, my wounds healed, both physically and emotionally. I found solace in the support of loved ones, who helped me rebuild my shattered confidence. Life moved forward, but the lessons learned that night would forever shape my perspective. To this day, whenever I see a late-night delivery driver rushing through the dimly lit streets, I offer a silent prayer for their safety. I know the dangers they face, the hidden terrors that can lurk in the shadows of our seemingly ordinary world. And as I carry on with my own life, I hold on to the wisdom gained from that harrowing night, a testament to the power of intuition and the importance of staying vigilant. So, to all those who embark on the nocturnal path of delivering sustenance to strangers, I implore you to listen to your gut, heed the warnings of your surroundings, and prioritize your well-being. In a world where darkness can encroach upon even the brightest moments, staying safe may just be the key to preserving your life. Story 2. It was a cold and windy night, and I found myself out working as a part-time pizza delivery driver. Fresh out of school, I desperately needed money, and delivering pizzas seemed like a relatively easy way to earn some extra cash. At that time, I was content with the amount of money I was making, even though it wasn't much. Since I still lived with my parents and only had to cover my phone bill, it was more than enough for me. As the night grew late, I realized that this would likely be my final delivery for the evening. I hurried to complete it as quickly as possible. Arriving at the customer's house, I walked up to the front steps and knocked on the door. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary initially, as the main door was wide open, with the screen door slightly ajar. I patiently waited for about a minute and then knocked again, a little louder this time. I wanted to ensure they heard me. Faint music played in the background, leading me to believe they simply hadn't noticed my presence. Another minute passed, but still no one came to the door. I knocked 2 more times with a minute between each knock, but there was no response. This situation took me by surprise, as it was not a common occurrence. Normally, customers would answer the door within a minute of my arrival. Just as I was about to knock for the last time, I noticed a piece of paper wedged between the door. Curiosity piqued, I retrieved the paper and read its contents. It instructed me to deliver the pizza to the back door and knock loudly, accompanied by a smiley face. A sense of unease washed over me, and I hesitated for a moment. Red flags started to wave in my mind, warning me of potential danger. However, I convinced myself that I might be overthinking the situation. Reluctantly, I decided to proceed, not wanting the customer to complain about a cold pizza if they found it left on the front porch. I made my way around the house, and as I approached the back door, the music grew louder. I noticed a small campfire burning outside, but there was no sign of anyone around. Cautiously, I ascended the back patio steps and knocked on the door, following the instructions on the note. I waited anxiously for someone to answer, my impatience mounting. After a few minutes of no response, I considered leaving the pizza on the deck and departing. Suddenly, a loud noise emanated from within the house, followed by screams from both a man and a woman. It was evident that a violent altercation was taking place, and I found myself at a loss for what to do. The screaming persisted, escalating with each passing minute, and concern gripped me. It seemed like someone was in grave danger inside the house, possibly the woman enduring physical abuse. The disturbing sounds fueled my growing worry. Just as I was about to call the police, the man burst out of the house and snatched the pizza from my hands. He apologized for the delay, but I could sense he was lying, his attempt to mask the chaos behind him. Giving him a suspicious look, I declined his money and began walking away, already planning to call the authorities from my car. As I reached my vehicle in the driveway, the woman suddenly appeared, running towards me in distress. She pleaded for help, her battered state confirming the horrors that had unfolded. Her swollen eyes and bruised body bore witness to the brutality she had endured. Tears streamed down her face, and blood stained her nose and stomach. She confided in me that the man had sliced her stomach with a knife and threatened her with a gun. Desperation consumed her as she implored me to drive away before he found us and harmed us both. Her pleas were haunting, and I couldn't ignore her desperate need for assistance. Without a moment's hesitation, I unlocked the car doors, and she hurriedly climbed into the passenger seat. Fear and panic overwhelmed her, and she continued to plead with me to escape. I started the engine, and as we sped away, she used my phone to call the police, recounting the horrifying details of her ordeal. We arrived at my workplace, and my boss, after hearing the situation, showed understanding and compassion. The gravity of what had transpired lingered in my mind, and the following day I made the difficult decision to quit my job. The trauma was too overwhelming, and I knew I needed a fresh start, seeking a safer occupation. In the days that followed, Angela, the woman I had rescued, and I kept in touch. She had taken the initiative to reach out to me, expressing her profound gratitude for my intervention. It was through our conversations that I learned the full extent of her harrowing experience. Angela had endured years of abuse at the hands of Tom, her ex-partner. Trapped and isolated, she had no means of escape. He controlled every aspect of her life, leaving her without a phone or any local friends. This night, fueled by the revelation of her pregnancy, their argument had escalated to unimaginable violence. Tom's intentions were clear. He wanted to terminate the pregnancy by any means necessary. The altercation had reached its climax, leading Angela to strike back in self-defense, using a nearby hammer to incapacitate him. With her life hanging in the balance, she seized the opportunity to escape, finding refuge in the backseat of my car. The police arrived at the scene shortly after we had driven away. Tragically, they discovered that Tom had taken his own life, a final act of desperation in the face of his actions. Angela was finally free from his grasp, but the scars, both physical and emotional, would remain. As time passed, Angela and I developed a deep bond, forged by the shared trauma we had experienced that night. We connected on social media, allowing us to support each other's healing journey. Recently, I reached out to her, curious about how her life had unfolded since our encounter. Angela's response filled me with relief and joy. She expressed that she had found solace and happiness in a new relationship with someone who genuinely loved and cared for her. She shared photos of herself and her daughter, radiating happiness and security. It was evident that they had found a better place in life, far removed from the horrors they had once endured. Knowing that Angela had escaped her abusive past and was now thriving filled my heart with immense satisfaction. Our paths had intertwined under the most horrific circumstances, but through it all, we had managed to bring hope and support into each other's lives. As I reflect on that cold and windy night, I am reminded of the importance of compassion and bravery. The darkness of that experience propelled me to seek a safer path, while Angela's resilience and determination inspired me to never take the safety and well-being of others for granted. Our friendship stands as a testament to the power of human connection and the strength we can find in one another during times of profound adversity. Though the memories of that night may never fade entirely, we both have found solace in knowing that a brighter future awaits us. Story 3. During my late teenage years, I found myself working as a pizza delivery driver at a local pizzeria. One Saturday night, it was nearing 11 o'clock, and my manager approached me asking if I could take on one last delivery for the night. Typically, we wouldn't make deliveries past 10:30, but the unusually busy evening made it hard to refuse. I hopped into my old, beaten-up 2008 Pontiac Grand Prix, feeling exhausted and eager to head home. To stay awake, I turned on some music, hoping it would help. Being familiar with the small town, I knew the area like the back of my hand. However, it was ironic that I had never delivered to this particular location before. The address I received was a few miles outside of town, in an area I had never ventured into. It felt like a different jurisdiction, or at least a whole different township. As I approached the house, I realized just how unfamiliar the area was, but I pushed any unease aside. According to my GPS, I had arrived, but to my surprise, I was still about a quarter mile away from the actual house. Perplexed, I kept driving until I spotted the next house, as I was literally in the middle of nowhere. Assuming it was a GPS glitch, I stopped at the next house, hoping it was the correct address. Reluctant to drive all the way up the long driveway without confirmation, I parked my car halfway and stepped out to check the mailbox for the address. Thankfully, the address on the mailbox matched the one on my GPS, providing a sense of relief. I proceeded to walk up the rest of the driveway towards the house. Knocking on the door, I waited patiently, but no one answered. Growing frustrated, as my income relied on tips, I reluctantly left the pizza on the front porch. Disappointed, I made my way back to the car, picking up the pace due to the darkness that engulfed the property with no outside lights illuminating the surroundings. As I walked, I suddenly heard footsteps, crunching leaves and snapping twigs, seemingly coming from the back of the house. My heart raced, and a chilling sense of unease swept over me. Without knowing who or what was behind me, I instinctively hurried back to my car, fearing what might await me if I stayed. I started my car and began backing up slowly. There was no room for a U-turn unless I drove all the way up the driveway, something I desperately wanted to avoid, focused on looking behind me while reversing. When I turned my gaze forward, a man wearing a wolf mask suddenly appeared, chasing after me. My instincts kicked in, and I floored the gas pedal, desperate to outrun him. The driveway had a slight curve, causing my car to skid off the gravel, colliding with the mailbox, nearly careening into a ditch. The man caught up to me and attempted to open the passenger side door, but fortunately I had locked it in time. I sped away, contemplating whether I should call the police or not as I returned to the restaurant. Eventually, I decided against it, fearing that no one would believe me or that my boss would accuse me of fabricating the story to hide the mailbox incident. So, I kept the terrifying encounter to myself, not sharing it with anyone at work. Strangely, no one contacted the restaurant to complain about the damaged mailbox. With time passing, it became increasingly apparent that the man in the wolf mask didn't live there. It seemed that the house was either vacant, foreclosed, or the residents were simply away. As the days went by, the incident continued to haunt me. I became convinced that the man with the wolf mask had a more sinister agenda than just ordering a pizza. It gnawed at me, wondering what his intentions could have been. Weeks turned into months, and still no news emerged about the incident. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. I began to delve into research, trying to uncover any information about the house and its mysterious inhabitants. The more I dug, the stranger things became. I stumbled upon local legends and rumors surrounding the area. Whispers of a hidden cult conducting dark rituals and abandoned properties sent shivers down my spine. The house I had visited seemed to align with the descriptions of one such abandoned dwelling. Curiosity fueled my determination to unravel the truth. I discreetly reached out to longtime residents of the town, seeking their knowledge of the house and the unsettling events that unfolded that night. I found a retired police officer who had served in the area for years. With cautious hesitation, he shared a chilling tale. The house had indeed been foreclosed upon years ago, and its previous owners mysteriously disappeared without a trace. Rumors spread about a malevolent presence that haunted the property. The officer recalled multiple incidents of trespassers reporting eerie encounters and unexplained phenomena. As my investigation deepened, I uncovered an old newspaper article from decades ago. It detailed a series of unsolved disappearances that occurred in the vicinity of the abandoned house. The victims were young adults, just like me, who had vanished under mysterious circumstances. The article mentioned an unidentified masked figure seen lurking in the shadows before each disappearance. Dread settled in my gut, connecting the dots between the masked man, the abandoned house, and the vanished victims. The realization that I had narrowly escaped a potentially gruesome fate sent shivers down my spine. The wolf mask became a symbol of malevolence, representing a lurking evil that preyed on unsuspecting souls. Haunted by what I had discovered, I couldn't keep the truth to myself any longer. I anonymously contacted the local authorities, providing them with all the information I had gathered. Although uncertain if they would take my account seriously, I hoped it would at least prompt an investigation into the mysterious occurrences surrounding that forsaken house. Days turned into weeks once again, and anxiety consumed me as I awaited any news from the authorities. Finally, I received an unexpected phone call. It was an investigator assigned to my case. He thanked me for coming forward and assured me that they would conduct a thorough investigation into the house and the masked figure I had encountered. Months passed with no updates from the investigator. I began to lose hope, thinking that the case had gone cold. But then, on a rainy autumn evening, I received a call from the investigator, his voice filled with urgency. He explained that they had uncovered a dark secret hidden within the abandoned house's walls. Behind a hidden panel, they discovered a hidden chamber filled with disturbing artifacts, symbols, and evidence of occult rituals. It appeared that the masked man and his cohorts had used the house as their twisted sanctuary. The investigation also revealed a connection between the masked figure and the unsolved disappearances from years past. The authorities managed to apprehend several individuals associated with the cult, including the man in the wolf mask. It was a bittersweet victory, knowing that justice would be served, but the horrors I had experienced would forever haunt me. News of the cult's discovery spread throughout the town, and the community felt a collective sense of relief mixed with lingering unease. People became more vigilant, watching out for any signs of similar sinister activities. In the aftermath of that fateful encounter, I left my job as a pizza delivery driver, eager to put the terrifying experience behind me. I moved to a different town, hoping to start anew. But the memories of that night continued to linger, casting a shadow over my every thought. I couldn't help but wonder if the cult's influence extended beyond that abandoned house, if their reach extended to other corners of the world. Determined to find closure and peace of mind, I dedicated myself to uncovering more about the cult and its members. I delved into books, online forums, and even sought the guidance of experts in the occult. I yearned for answers, for a deeper understanding of the darkness that had nearly consumed me. As my knowledge grew, so did my unease. I discovered that the cult had a history rooted in ancient rituals and forbidden practices. They believed in harnessing supernatural powers, seeking to invoke malevolent entities for their own twisted purposes. It sent chills down my spine, knowing that I had unknowingly stepped into their path. Driven by a newfound purpose, I reached out to others who had encountered similar encounters or had information that could shed light on the cult's activities. I formed connections with individuals who shared my determination to expose the truth, to ensure that no one else would fall victim to their sinister machinations. Together, we formed a secret network, a collective of survivors, researchers, and individuals touched by the darkness. We pooled our resources, shared our findings, and strategized ways to dismantle the cult's operations. Our efforts extended far beyond that small town, as we discovered a network of interconnected cult cells operating in different regions. The more we uncovered, the more perilous the journey became. We faced threats, both physical and psychological, from the cult's devout followers. Our lives were constantly in danger as we played a dangerous game of cat and mouse, always one step behind the elusive leaders. But we persisted, fueled by our shared resolve to protect others from falling prey to the cult's malevolence. Our investigation led us to uncover more missing persons cases, unsolved mysteries, and dark secrets hidden beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. We refused to let fear paralyze us, instead channeling it into a burning desire for justice. As our actions gained momentum, we caught the attention of law enforcement agencies and media outlets. Our stories were shared, exposing the truth to a wider audience. Pressure mounted on the authorities to take action, and a task force was formed to dismantle the cult once and for all. Through careful planning, collaboration, and unwavering determination, we staged a series of simultaneous raids on the cult's hideouts. It was a risky endeavor, but we were determined to bring their reign of terror to an end. The arrest that followed marked a significant victory against the forces of darkness that had haunted us for far too long. With the cult's leaders in custody, their operations disrupted, and their followers scattered, a sense of relief washed over us. We had succeeded in protecting countless innocent lives from their nefarious plans. The town and its surrounding areas began to heal, albeit scarred by the horrors we had collectively endured. I eventually moved on with my life, forever changed by my encounter with the masked man and the journey that followed. But I vowed to remain vigilant, to ensure that the shadows would never swallow another soul. I became an advocate for those affected by cults and dedicated my efforts to raising awareness and providing support to survivors. The story of that night and the subsequent battle against the cult became a cautionary tale, a reminder that evil exists in the world, lurking in the most unexpected places. It served as a testament to the power of resilience, unity, and the indomitable spirit of those who refuse to be silenced. And so, the horror story that began with a simple pizza delivery unfolded into a tale of courage, discovery, and triumph over darkness. It reminded us that even in the face of unimaginable terror, the human spirit can rise, shining a light into the deepest shadows and restoring hope where it had been lost.